Action scenes, fight scenes, it doesn't matter if you like to write action movies or dramas, chances are you're gonna be writing a fight or action scene at some point, but how do you do it? So today we're gonna jump in, we're gonna grab the tiger and try to wrestle it a little and give you some tips and strategies for writing action and fight scenes. There's several links below, be sure to check those out, subscribe if you haven't, like if you find value, I really do appreciate that. Let's jump in. While it may seem like the first rule of fight scenes is you don't talk about how to write fight scenes because sometimes it's kind of hard to find good information, the actuality is that fight scenes are nuanced and they have to fit the tone and scope of the story. So it's not really like a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. So a fight in a John Wick film is not the same as a fight scene in a James Bond film, right? They're going to feel different. And as a result, you write them different. But there are some guiding principles and strategies for effective scenes that are action or action based. So we're going to talk about some general tips for writing them, and then we're going to explore a few strategies for how to do it. Now, a caveat is we are not going to talk about things that you can find in practically any online search for how to write a fight scene. So things like use strong verbs, make it harder for the protagonist, or research the weapons, or all those other similar things you're not going to find in this video. This is about screenwriting and storytelling. So we're focusing on the audience and their experience reading the fight scene that you write. Okay, so you're writing it in a script. How do you write it? So what are some tips and strategies? Tips for writing fight scenes. Tip number one, focus on the audience's emotions. You need to know how all of the characters involved in the fight scene are doing emotionally. Okay, so all the characters, you got to know that. You might think like, okay, yeah, I know I got to know that. All those characters plus one, and the one is the audience. You've got to know how the audience is feeling along with the characters. If you're just describing an action scene or a fight scene, okay, how's the audience supposed to feel about what they're seeing on the screen? And this doesn't really just apply to action and, fight scenes. It applies to any scene. Okay, the audience needs to know, how are we supposed to feel? The character just revealed the secret. Should we be shocked, happy, sad? Okay, a fight scene's the same way. This character just punched the other one. How are we supposed to feel? Happy, sad, excited, scared? I don't know. Do they want the protagonist to win? Am I supposed to be rooting for the protagonist? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe the protagonist is supposed to lose. Can the reader track that emotion? That's what you have to do. And you have to lead the audience through the emotion of the scene. So we got two characters, Bogart and Frankie, and Bogart is beating Frankie, and that sucks. But Frankie finds a pipe, and now Bogart is reeling, looking for a place to hide, a weapon of his own, scared. Okay, you're tracking the emotion. That's what you have to do. Tip number two is to focus on the emotional moments of the fight scene alongside the physical ones. And when we write fight scenes or action scenes, we tend to think that those scenes are just the action. Like, how do I write the action? How do I write the action? Well, that's just half of it. I mean, literally, it's kind of almost less than half. The other half is the emotion. The characters feel something. We, the audience, need to know how are they feeling. And just like I mentioned above, we need to know how we're supposed to feel about it. So yes, you still point out the physical stuff, the broken nose, the person was stabbed in the leg, but you also have to note how the character responds emotionally. That's just as important. Tip number three, jargon sucks. Now, while people may know what a roundhouse or uppercut is, if you start thinking, well, my character is a jiu-jitsu expert, so you write, he puts Frank in a triangle choke. What the heck is that? And if the reader doesn't know, they're done. They've checked out. Like, too bad, so sad, see you later. So when you start dropping that jargon in, if you haven't explained what it is, nobody's going to be able to track with it, and they're out, because we got to track with the emotion. Instead, you want to use words that evoke emotion or sound. Bogart body slams Frankie on the ground, hard. Frankie's wind knocked out of him, trying to catch his breath. When Bogart's on top of him, choking him unconscious. Frankie's eyes are rolling back in his head. He's trying to stay conscious, sees the glint of a knife, reaches, strains, blood vessels bulging. He doesn't want to die this way. So avoid the jargon. Just use common descriptions. And if you can include words that evoke sound or emotion, that's so much better. You are in. Tip number four, pacing matters. In general, you want to think of this thing like shorter is better, and shorter is better is fine, but a better way to think of it might be faster is better. Okay, so not just really short on the page. You can have things go longer on the page, but it should feel fast. It should be a fast read, a quick read. I'm moving through it really quickly. It's the pacing, okay? So things like sentence length impacts the pacing. Shorter sentences, faster, visceral, like this. Longer sentences slow down the read and make the fight move at a glacial pace. It's not glacial. It's fast, quick, bloody. Suddenly there's a gun. The boom echoes in the hallway. Still very sentence length, yes. But in action, you probably want to opt for shorter and faster, okay? Shorter, faster. And before you ask, yes, sentence fragments are 100% okay in screenwriting. Like, totally fine. The other thing that impacts pacing is white space. You want as much white space on the page as you can muster. The more white space, the faster the read. Large blocks of description across the page make the story seem slow. I mean, it's fine to have wall-to-wall text if it's broken up with a bit of white space. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples here in a second. Another thing that can help with pacing is to break up important beats into new paragraphs. Again, you're trying to avoid large blocks of text, but how do you break it up? Well, by beats is one way to break it up. By emotional turns is another. So by different actions of different characters is another. So if I've got a character doing this and I've got a story beat here and a story beat here, put those in different paragraphs. If there's different emotional turns, this character reacts this way and then they react this other way, break those up. If there's new characters involved, this character here, this one here, this one here, anything you can do to kind of break up the big long blocks of description are helpful. And there's lots of ways for how you choose to break up the action. You just want to do your best and be consistent with how you break things up. Again, this also matters with the tone and type of story you're telling. So the way John Wick breaks up action is not the same as a James Bond movie. I use those examples, but they're going to be a little different. You do want to try to be consistent though, because consistency helps with clarity. That helps the reader follow what's going on. It helps them track with what's going on. They're able to understand what's going on. They can feel the emotion. They know what's happening. So anything you can do to help with consistency and clarity, a bonus. And again, with all these tips, keep in mind the audience's emotions. And because you're writing a spec script, that means the audience needs to track with the words on the page. They don't have the benefit of seeing it, right? They can't see it up on the screen like you see it in your head. So what are some strategies for writing action and fight scenes? Before I get to the strategies, if you're finding value, like, subscribe. If you haven't done that, interact in some way, drop a comment. What's a great fight scene? What's a great action scene? If you know some, like, drop them below. People like watching those and learning from them. So if you can do that, that'd be great. By the way, YouTube really loves it when people interact. So it helps me out and it helps other people find the channel. So I really do appreciate it. What are the strategies for writing action or fight scenes? Well, the default for a lot of new writers is a blow-by-blow fight scene. And usually this is accompanied with a bunch of jargon, which we've already pointed out is bad, right? The writer sees the scene in their head and they just start writing it all in all its minute choreographed detail. This person does this and this person ducks and then does this. And yeah, that's a problem because no one is going to see it exactly as you see it. You have to let go of the minutia. As much as you don't want to, you have to let go of the minutia. So one strategy is to write the action blow by blow. That's one strategy, but it's 99% of the time very bad. Okay, so if you see yourself doing this, you need to step back, find a different way, and let me give you a couple of other strategies. So this is a strategy to do it, but it's probably more of a strategy to not do it. So let's avoid the blow by blow. The next strategy is what I would call a beat by beat. And this is where you break down the core of the physical and emotional beats of the fight and you just describe those. So let's look at a script for Lone Survivor for this one. This is a portion from Lone Survivor. Notice initially here the white space. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll here a little bit. Notice the white space. There's some dialogue that's breaking things up. The action blocks are not really that long, at most like 3 lines. Most of them are 2 lines, just to kind of keep as much white space on the page as possible. But I also want you to look, because we're talking about how you can use a beat by beat example. So let me just look right here at this just little section. 2 more Taliban hit, remaining SEALs take covering positions, Axe being closest takes majority of the firepower, decent cover, but it's getting hacked to pieces. That shrapnel then cuts his face. Luttrell is getting shot up. He returns fire. Further, the other 2 are shooting. They're trying to get closer. So notice it's just a beat by beat. It's like this is part of the story, this part of the story, this part of the story. We want to make sure all these little moments get captured. So here's this one, this one, this one, this one. When you kind of think about beat by beat action, you might also think about it as like different shots. I mean, action, it gets shot pretty quickly, right? It's edited really fast. So if you kind of think as of each of your descriptive paragraphs here, so like this would be just one shot. Okay, so that's just one shot. So you have that shot, then another shot, then another shot. And if you can kind of think of like that, that might be helpful to you. Also, notice in here, we're getting a lot of the results of the action, right? That this wound, that wound, this is happening, that's happening. It's still a bit general, but there are some specifics here. So it's really just the beat by beat kind of breakdown of what's going on. Another strategy of writing action or fights is to use what I call a summary. And you can see this fairly well in the spec script for John Wick, which was originally titled Scorn. We've got a whole thing in here that is not part of the movie. It was written out, but this is a really great little action piece that kind of talks about all these elements here of just giving a summary. Okay, so John Wick here, he enters a facility. He's shooting anything that moves. He's an angel of death. Each target receives 2 well-placed bullets to ensure incapacitation. He never slows, never misses, and will not stop. Like, this is 100% a summary. So he could be shooting 20 people, 10 people. We don't know, but we just know he is not going to stop. He is going to keep coming. He's the angel of death, right? It's this summary type of writing. And if you kind of keep reading, right, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, here's what he's doing. We might get some very specifics, but we don't know all the little stuff that's going on. We just know he gets knocked over, he reloads his weapon, he stands up, he shoots, he fires, he's moving slowly, passes by, doing all his stuff. Like, this is what he's doing. It's just a summary of the action, but we can kind of track with how we're supposed to be feeling in this story. Now, realize, too, that it's not quite a they fight and John wins, but it's not that far off. I mean, it does include emotional, it does include physical beats, but it's definitely much more of a summary. Another strategy is to do what I call follow a character. And really, this is where you're following just one character through all the mayhem that's going on. What happens with this is you kind of trap the audience into just following the one character. I mean, yes, there's other stuff going on, right? This is the one character doing stuff in the midst of all the mayhem. But we don't care about all of that because we are emotionally invested in this one character. Just like this example from The Long Kiss Goodnight. In this scene from The Long Kiss Goodnight, here we're following Charlie, and we're just seeing what she sees. We hear what she hears, and we are meant to feel what she is feeling. Yes, other people are doing stuff here, but it's all a result of what Charlie is doing or what Charlie's actions. So it's like, you know, she's tied to a wheel at this point. It gets put underwater. She's basically being tortured. And we just kind of track with her and what she's doing here in the story. And she's trying to do this. She's trying to do this. She, comes up, she finds a gun, she comes back up. When she gets to the surface, the wheel creaks, it groans, she comes up firing, first slug in the knee, so there's some specifics here, right? But we're really just tracking with her. It's all her point of view in a sense. We want to feel what she's feeling, we want to see what she's going through, and this is how you really can just kind of start writing where you're following the characters, because you're just trying to follow what are they feeling, what are they going through, what's happening to them, and that helps us to connect to the character. And of course, you can mix and match. I mean, maybe we follow a character for a bit, maybe we get a summary, maybe we get some specific beats of important emotional or physical action, right? But it's a mix. Just like in Thor Ragnarok. Notice we've got some white space here. There's some lines. We've got some summary. There's some very specific things. We're getting these sounds thrown in. It just feels very visceral. But we also get things like, and Thor is winning right here, right? Like we notice like, oh, okay, here's something we should be cheering, like, because we're supposed to be on Thor's side. So we're happy for Thor, but we also kind of like Hulk. So, but Thor is winning and yay, we can't believe he's winning and what's going on. So there's all these things, and this whole little section, and really most all of Thor Ragnarok, is kind of a combination. There's sometimes where we track with the beats, sometimes we're following a specific character. Like this specific scene here where Thor is fighting Hulk is really all Thor's point of view. So we're kind of really following his character. We see other glimpses of other characters and other people say things, but it's really him that we're tracking with. So you can kind of use all of these tools and wrap them all together to create the type of fight and action scene that you want to use. But really, these are the kind of strategies. Really, you've got these options, right? You can follow the beats, you can write summaries, you can follow characters, or you can just kind of combine them all in one thing. The most important element in all of this is you want to be focusing on the emotion of the action. I mean, what the audience feels, what we see that's story important, what we hear that helps drive home the emotions. Keep things moving. Always be sure to communicate how the reader should be feeling about what is going on. I mean, if we follow one character, we'll feel what that character feels. If there's a bunch of things going on, we need help to track with the action and the emotion. And if you can do that, you'll be well on your way to writing solid action scenes. As a bonus tip, I would tell you this: read action scripts. See how other writers are doing it. You can learn a ton from reading scripts, and you can find a lot of scripts online, so look for them. Download them when you see them. Start to build a library for yourself, a reference library of, oh, here's things I can look at and here's things I can learn from. And then when you need a good action scene, you can kind of look and help, and that will inspire you to write a really great one. Hopefully this has been helpful to you. If it has, please be sure to like, subscribe, bell, all those things. I really do appreciate it. There's links below to some resources that might be helpful to you. Be sure to check those out if those are of interest to you. When you go to tell a story, when you include a fight scene, because you're probably at some point going to do that, use the emotion, include the emotion, but when you tell that story, tell a story that matters. See you later.